Hello everyone. I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 3 of the series. Chapter 36, Xiao Qing's offer. The place became silent. Everyone stared blankly at this scene, unable to return to their senses for a long time. Such a terrifying demonic bear died so easily. With the bear's strength, their attacks were no different from scratching its back. However, its body was split open by Lai Ran's spear. This couldn't be a dream, right? On the other hand, the huge corpses on the ground surged with blood like a fountain, and the trees around it collapsed randomly. All of this affirmed everyone on what had just happened. Xiao Qing looked at Lai Ran, whose clothes were still snow-white, and her throat tightened. Compared to the demonic bear, this man was a monster. Lai Ran picked up the Yunling spear and the white light in his palm quietly disappeared. This demonic bear was very strong. An ordinary technique would not be able to pierce through its defenses. Moreover, even a golden core expert wouldn't dare to take on its powerful palm. Outside the 100,000 mountains, it was an expert. Unfortunately, it encountered Lai Ran. The demon threshing fist suppresses all demons and evil spirits. Furthermore, Yunling's spear technique was extremely sharp and unyielding. The bear was pierced to death. The disciples of Yuyuo Temple were the first to react, praising Lai Ran. Shengzai is too strong. I almost peed in fear just now. That demonic bear was split open. Shengzai is the best. Is this the strongest genius in the vast lands? I am in love. Their faces were filled with joy for surviving the calamity. They looked at Lai Ran with admiration. If nothing unexpected happened, this group of disciples would become his hardcore fans. Shengzai Lu Xinren plunged into his embrace, her delicate body slightly trembling. That was so scary. I was so worried about you. Really? Yes, Lu Xinren cried as she scratched his chest with her right hand. The corner of Lai Ran's mouth trembled. Aren't you taking advantage of the situation? Lai Ran grabbed her by the collar, lifted her, and sent her flying. Lu Xinren, Xiao Qing listened to their cheers and finally landed. She walked over to the crowd and bowed deeply. I was attacked by a demonic bear, and I ran to this place in a panic. But I caused you to fall into danger. I'm sorry. Her words were filled with an apology tone. She caused this entire situation herself. Even if she was a mortal now, she would not escape her responsibility. However, the disciples of Yuyuo Temple did not blame her. Her suicidal behavior had won many people's hearts. It's all right. It's all over. Miss, you didn't do it on purpose. With Shengzai here, there will be no danger. Miss, are you all right? This group of disciples who had not been involved in the world comforted her. Shengzai Xiao Qing looked at Lai Ran, who was studying how to skin the bear. A trace of curiosity flashed through her eyes. These people should be disciples of the sect, and he is the Shengzai of the sect. I wonder which great sect they are from. They are really strong. That dazzling spear was firmly imprinted in her mind. Xiao Qing walked to Lai Ran's side and bowed. Thank you for your help, Senior. If it wasn't for you, I would already be in the stomach of the bear. Although this person looked young, who knew if he was an old senior who coveted beauty? Xiao Qing didn't dare bring much attention. Lai Ran glanced at her and frowned. Mortal. She didn't have any spirit fluctuations on her body. It was impossible for her to be a cultivator. As a mortal, she dared to enter the Grand Myriad Mountains. Yet she still managed to reach this place alive. This was simply a heavenly feat. Xiao Qing knew what he was thinking and said in a low voice, I have a reason for entering this place. To be able to live until now was purely due to good luck. Lai Ran nodded. Then, I wish you luck. Clearly, he was not interested in her background. Xiao Qing understood. He was chasing her away. Logically speaking, the other party had saved her life and had yet to blame her. It was already benevolent and righteous. However, just outside the 100,000 mountains, she had encountered such a terrifying demon. She was several tens of kilometers away from the secret realm, and her chances of arriving there alive were basically zero. What should I do? She hesitated for a moment. Lai Ran raised his brows. What, you want me to send you off? Xiao Qingge gritted her teeth and said, I'm brave enough to make a deal with Senior. Not interested. It's about the secret realm that's about to be opened, which contains the ancient immortal emperor's inheritance. She now understood it. On her own, she couldn't touch the secret realm. It was better to cooperate with someone with strength for her to have a chance. The immortal emperor's inheritance. Lai Ran shook his head. You're just a mortal. Why should I trust you? Because Xiao Qingge wanted to tell her background, but she was afraid that she would be killed. Just as Lai Ran was beginning to get impatient, a notification suddenly rang in his mind. Chapter 37. Sheng Zai is a soft person with a cold exterior. A system notification sounded in Lai Ran's mind. Mission issued. Immortal path is illusory, and opportunities are fleeting. The 100,000 Mountains secret realm is about to open. Find a way to enter it. So she wasn't lying. There really is a secret realm here. Lai Ran gave Xiao Qingge a serious look. This person had some background. Xiao Qingge said in a low voice. Senior was a saving grace for me. I didn't deserve to negotiate with you. But this secret realm is far too important. There is no other method. What you just said, what kind of deal do you want? Lai Ran asked. Xiao Qingge's spirit was refreshed. I'm willing to share all the information I have with you. I only want Senior to bring me into the secret realm as long as we can enter it. We can rely on our own abilities to obtain any fortuitous opportunities. Ability? Lai Ran sneered. You're just a mortal. If I enter the secret realm and kill you, wouldn't you be making a fool of yourself? Xiao Qingge's face turned pale. How could she not have thought of this? She gritted her teeth and said, the matter has come to this point. I can only gamble. What are you betting on? Lai Ran asked. Her eyes were clear. I'm betting that you are not a wicked person. Lai Ran shook his head. In front of immortal destinies, even one's family members would turn against each other. She actually believed in a stranger. He didn't know if she was too stupid or naive. Senior, can you consider? Xiao Qingge asked carefully. Lai Ran looked at her scarred appearance and casually tossed a healing pill. He said indifferently, before we reach the secret realm, you better not die so quickly. Then, he turned around and left. That's great. Xiao Qingge heaved a sigh of relief. Her tense nerves relaxed, and exhaustion and pain immediately emerged. Her legs nearly fell to the ground. Lu Xinren gently supported her. Be careful. Go over there and sit with us. Thank you. Xiao Qingge looked at her gratefully. Sitting beside the bonfire, Xiao Qingge swallowed the medicinal pill and her injuries began to heal rapidly. After all, to her mortal physique, this was a true immortal pill. Lu Xinren smiled and said, don't look at our Sheng Zai from his cold personality. He's actually enthusiastic. He's just not good at socializing. Yes, I can tell that Senior is indeed an ardent and righteous man. Xiao Qingge nodded. Lu Xinren could not help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Xiao Qingge was puzzled. It's nothing. It's just that I feel a bit strange listening to you calling him Senior. Lu Xinren shook her head and said, obviously, Sheng Zai is only 18 years old this year. You called him like he's 80. Haha. 18. Xiao Qingge was shocked. To be able to kill this demonic bear, he has to at least have a golden core realm cultivation. How could he be just 18? She was speechless. Even with her previous talent, she was only at the late foundation establishment realm at that age, barely touching upon the threshold of the golden core realm. Lu Xinren shrugged her shoulders. But Sheng Zai is indeed in the golden core realm, and he is indeed 18. How could it be? Before Xiao Qingge could finish speaking, she suddenly thought of something. With such a heaven-defying talent, apart from that person in her heart, who else would there be? She hurriedly asked, Sister, which sect are you all from? Lu Xinren scratched her head. Promise me that you won't be afraid of us. We're disciples of Yueyuo Temple. We're here for the grand Myriad Mountain Range trial. She quickly added, but don't worry. Although we are the so-called devil sect, we won't slaughter the innocent. They are really from the Yulu Temple. If you say that, isn't Senior? He's Lai Ran, the sect Sheng Zai, the strongest genius in the vast lands. Lu Xinren said proudly. It really is him. Xiao Qing looked at Lai Ran in a daze. Her eyes blank and bewildered. She had imagined 10,000 scenarios, but she would never have imagined that they would meet in this way. I haven't seen him in 10 years. He has changed a lot. His personality is colder than before, but his talent is still so terrifying. With his current strength, he had already stood at the top of the younger generation. What about me? I've lost my cultivation and became immortal. We are from a different world. I'm afraid you won't remember me anymore. Mist filled Xiao Qing's eyes. At this moment, a white robe was thrown at her. She raised her head blankly and saw Lai Ran's back facing her. His voice was indifferent as he said, "Your clothes are torn and tattered. They are unsightly. I haven't worn these clothes yet. Take them, and wear them in the meantime." Xiao Qing's clothes were ragged and her fair skin was exposed. She really couldn't wear her old clothes anymore. "Thank you." She wore the white robe as the fresh fragrance blew past her nose. Her face turned red for no reason. Her heart seemed to be filled with warm water, filled with indescribable warmth. Lu Xinren suppressed her smile and leaned against her ear and said, "See, I already told you that Sheng Zai is a soft person with a cold exterior." Chapter 38. Soft. Your sister. Soft person with a cold exterior. Xiao Qing looked at Lai Ran, who was seriously roasting the bear paw, and reluctantly accepted this statement. Since he is so outstanding, there should be many people who like him, right? She asked side by side. Lu Xinren nodded. It's not just a lot. Which female disciple of the 12 palaces on the 8 peaks of the Yueyuo temple doesn't admire Sheng Zai? Although this statement was a bit exaggerated, it was almost the same as the truth. He was handsome, talented, and well-respected. In simpler terms, he was a perfect male god. Then does he have any girlfriend? Xiao Qing could not help but ask. Are you kidding me? Of course not, Lu Xinren said with a serious expression. It's forbidden for Yulu Temple's disciples to have a man-woman relationship. We're just enjoying admiring him, but we don't dare to have any other thoughts. Furthermore, if you think about it, Sheng Zai has reached the Golden Core realm at just the age of 18. He must be a cultivation maniac. How could he be in the mood to fall in love? If she knew that Lai Ran had captured the sect master's heart, the 3 sects would probably collapse. Makes sense. Xiao Qing nodded. She felt as if a boulder was weighing down on her heart. But even though you can't be lovers, you can occasionally get close. Close. Lu Xinren moved closer to her ear and said shyly, "Just now, I took the opportunity to hug Sheng Zai. That feeling, that muscle, it's truly amazing." "You rascal!" Xiao Qing spat at her with a red face. Suddenly, she felt like her husband had been touched. "By the way, I still don't know what your name is," Lu Xinren asked. Xiao Qing hesitated for a moment. "My name is Sun Qingqing." She did not want to deceive this kind-hearted girl, but the meaning behind the name Xiao Qing was too complicated, and it was very easy to attract the disaster leading to her death. Moreover, she didn't want to meet Lai Ran in this manner. Lu Xinren didn't think too much and nodded. "My name is Lu Xinren. Don't be afraid. I will take care of you." As she spoke, she gave the impression of a big sister. "All right." Xiao Qing smiled, looking past the warm bonfire in front of her. What came into her sight were the disciples' laughter and Lai Ran, who was busily roasting the bear paws. Her heart was filled with indescribable warmth that she could not feel at home. "This is one of the top devil sect." The corner of Xiao Qing's mouth slightly curled up. "They don't have the temperament of a villain at all." Ever since Xiao Qing learned of Lai Ran's identity, she had put down all her guard. Not only did she give the map to him, but she also gave him all the information she knew. This caused Lai Ran to suspect that this girl had a problem with her brain. "Senior Lai, there are only 3 days left before the secret realm opens. Should we hurry up after rectifying the gap?" Xiao Qing asked. Over the past few days, Lai Ran had led the team to hunt demon beasts, killing hundreds of thousands, amounting to a mountain of corpses and rivers of blood. It seemed that he had no intention of heading to the secret realm. "There's no rush. Let's wait until the sect's training is over," Lai Ran replied. In the depths of the 100,000 mountains, he could not leave these disciples behind. "All right." King had no objections. 2 more days passed. The disciples gathered enough demon bones to complete the trial mission. Ran sent them back to the teleportation portal. The deacons guarding the teleportation array were shocked. Normally, the training period of the sect would normally be around a month, and there would inevitably be casualties. However, Ran's group of disciples completed the mission in only a third of the time. Moreover, not a single person had died. At this moment, the young disciples were carrying beast bones with fierce and determined eyes. Everyone had undergone a qualitative transformation. In front of the teleportation formation, Ran looked at them and said indifferently, "To be honest, I originally didn't expect much from you guys. But you guys have proven yourself during these 10 days of trials." The trial disciples were excited, their chests rising and falling. It was as if they had received the best reward. The immortal path is a bitter and cold journey, and the great Tao is difficult to seek. Only by treading forward bravely and holding your head high can we become immortals. The most important thing in cultivation is talent, but what is more important than talent is the firm belief of never backing down. Ran's eyes swept across everyone's faces, and he said slowly and firmly, "Disciples, your martial luck is flourishing." The disciples' bodies trembled as they felt their blood boiling. Whoosh! Everyone knelt on one knee in unison, shouting fervently, "Sheng Zai! Sheng Zai!" King stood at the side, watching this shocking scene, unable to speak for a long time. The disciples reluctantly entered the teleportation portal and returned to the sect located thousands of miles away. Lu Xinren hugged Ran's thigh and insisted on exploring with him. In the end, he kicked her away. Ran couldn't help but sigh as he watched the light of the formation extinguish. His expression was desolate. "I wonder if Master has returned to the sect." I want to pinch her little hand and hear her call me husband. King didn't know what Ran was thinking. She thought that he was reluctant to part with those disciples. Her voice was gentle and comforting. "Don't feel bad. They have to learn how to grow up." Ran was dumbfounded. "What does it have to do with me if they don't grow up?" Still not accepting it, "You're really soft inside." Soft your sister. Chapter 39 To the Secret Realm. After sending off the disciples of Yuo Temple, Ran brought King back to the forest. Along the way, King looked at his gloomy expression and couldn't help but laugh. "Don't be angry. You can treat me like you're not soft. Okay." Lao Tzu is not. Ran's face darkened even more. Got it. King was also afraid of provoking him, so she changed the topic and said, "However, what you said earlier was indeed very inspiring. It directly matched my thoughts." "Which words?" Ran asked. King said, "Even if I want to bravely tread forward, my firm belief is more important than my talent. I benefited a lot from your words." "Oh, I said that," Ran said indifferently. "I lied to them." "Ah, you lied to them?" King was stunned. "You don't genuinely believe faith is more important than talent, right?" Ran replied. "Of course. Faith is very important." King nodded. Ran smiled. "You, a mortal, must have a very firm belief that you can survive in this demon land for 5 days alone. But what use was there? You probably can't even beat a sharp-toothed tiger." King became silent. This was the truth she could not refute. Many of them might not be able to become golden core cultivators in their entire lives. "I've only cultivated for 10 years. Yet I've already reached a level that they can't reach in their entire lives. They can only receive a few spirit stones per month. But the resources of the entire sect are at my disposal. This is the difference in talent that cannot be made up by anything." Ran's voice was calm as if he was merely stating the truth. How could King not understand this fact? When she was still a super-grade talent, the Supreme Tao Palace had treated her like a treasure. However, when her talent disappeared, the sect expelled her without a shred of empathy. Since that's the case, why are you lying to them? King was puzzled. Ran smiled. Because faith is the only thing they can control. Cultivation is a long and arduous process. In the next few days, they will face endless setbacks. I hope that today's encouragement will become their motivation when they are in despair and will support them as they go. I told them from the beginning that my only request to them, it's for them to live. Lai Ran was not a cold-blooded animal. Although he felt that this group of adorable new disciples was troublesome, their admiring gazes gave him a sense of responsibility. Zhao King looked at him for a long time and said seriously, Lai Ran, you are truly a good person. Lai Ran's mouth slightly trembled. You are a good person. Your entire family is a good person. You've honored me. Senior. The secret realm is about to open. But we still have 50 kilometers to go, Zhao King said anxiously. I think we're too late. There was a taboo in the Grand Myriad mountain range. After crossing the outer zone, flying is prohibited. Otherwise, it would be very easy to attract the attention of the vicious beasts in the depths of the region, inciting troubles on themselves. As for this place, the forest was dense, the roads were rugged, and demon beasts could be seen everywhere. Plus, she was immortal, so her speed could not be raised at all. We're too late. Lai Ran glanced at the map. Then let's speed up a bit. Just as Zhao King was about to speak, her body suddenly became lighter as the surrounding scenery quickly retreated. Lai Ran was hugging her waist and running forward. He didn't bother dodging. And like a tank, all the trees in front of him were destroyed with a single leap. When he reached the steep terrain, he leaped forward and landed on the ground like a meteor, leaving behind a huge crater. Then, he continued to run as if nothing else had mattered to him. The demon beasts noticed him and pounced over with a howl. However, silver light appeared, and blood splashed everywhere. Lai Ran's footsteps didn't stop, leaving behind only a single piece of flesh. The wind in Zhao King's ear fluttered, and waves of heat came from his large hand that was wrapped around her waist. Looking at his statue-like side view, her heart began to run rampant. A strange and green feeling filled her heart. Lai Ran. The closer they got to the secret realm, the more savage the demon beasts appeared to be. In just one cup of tea, he had already encountered 2 Foundation establishment demon beasts. Although they were no match for Lai Ran, they prevented Lai Ran from advancing at his full speed. He cut the demonic python into 2 and advanced a few more miles. When the secret realm was not far away, Lai Ran suddenly stopped. What happened? Zhao King asked. He put her down and said, let's find a place to hide. Zhao King was stunned. Then, her expression became serious as she silently hid behind a tree. At the same time, 2 scarlet lights lit up ahead. A huge tiger slowly walked out. It was 3 times the size of an ordinary sharp-toothed tiger. Its entire body was covered in raging flames, and they could feel the terrifying heat from afar. However, the leaves beneath its feet were unscathed. Zhao King covered her mouth and almost cried out in alarm. Scarlet Flame Tiger. A terrifying demon beast with a golden core cultivation. Chapter 40 Abnormal Phenomenon Dragon Elephant Zeshan. Chapter 40 Abnormal Phenomenon Dragon Elephant Zeshan. 1 cultivation day of a human was equivalent to 100 years of demonic cultivation. Compared to humans, demon beasts' cultivation path was more than 100 times harder. Unlike human cultivators who had a set cultivation system, most of the demon beasts didn't have much intelligence, and they didn't have the assistance of a sect. All of them relied on their bloodline to awaken. The stronger their bloodline was, the easier it would be to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and complete their transformation. But who said that bloodline inheritance was by any means easy? Even among 10,000 ordinary sharp-toothed tigers, it was difficult for a single scarlet flame tiger to appear. However, life was fair. Although it did not give them innate intelligence, it allowed them to possess terrifying flesh and strength. Ordinary Foundation establishment demon beasts' combined combat strength was no less than a golden core cultivator. On the other hand, this golden core scarlet flame tiger's strength was even more terrifying to the point of being immeasurable. If the Shangzai of any sect were to encounter it, they would have to avoid clashing head-on with the tiger. Senior, this should be its territory. Let's retreat and change paths, Zhao King said rationally. Lai Ran was very strong, but after all, he was only 18. This scarlet flame tiger's demonic flames seemed to scorch up to the heavens. At least, it should have cultivated for hundreds of years. Retreat. Lai Ran shook his head. I hate detours the most. Why don't you talk with it? And tell it to pretend to not see us. Xiao Qingzhi was dumbfounded. The flames on the scarlet flame tiger's body surged, and steam surged out from its nose. Its scarlet eyes were filled with oppressive, killing intent. Its intelligence was already activated. Even though it didn't understand what the two of them said, it was able to distinguish Lai Ran's disdainful tone. No human had ever dared to act presumptuously before it. After blocking my path, you still have a temper. Lai Ran frowned and said, it's not easy for you to cultivate this far. I'll give you one last chance. Before he could finish speaking, the killing intent in Scarlet Flame Tiger's eyes became more ferocious as it charged over with its flames. Be careful, Xiao Qingzhi cried out in alarm. However, she was stunned by the scene before her. You are the one seeking death. The air behind Lai Ran's back twisted with a soft hum. The void shattered, and an enormous giant strode out from the void crack. The giant's body was red, and its body shone with dazzling golden light. Its muscles were solid like steel. A divine dragon was wrapped around its left arm, and a giant elephant was captured in its right hand. Behind the figure lies an endless river of cosmic stars. The starry figure shone brilliantly, and the dragon's imposing aura was comparable to the boundless starry sky. It was as if the pressure from the figure had touched upon the depths of its soul. The flames in the Scarlet Flame Tiger's entire body converged as it crawled on the ground and trembled with fear. In front of the giant, it was as small as an ant. Lai Ran was shocked. This was his first time using a Kai manifestation skill. This abnormal phenomenon was too grandiose. Such a sight to behold. Tisk. If this was a special effect in the modern world, this scene would definitely burn a lot of money. The giant, whose face was unidentifiable, lowered its head and looked at the Scarlet Flame Tiger, who had lost its fighting spirit. The giant raised its right foot and kicked at the Scarlet Flame Tiger. Divine light exploded, and a fierce wind whistled. The trees several kilometers ahead were blown down by the hurricane. Blood sprayed out of the Scarlet Flame Tiger's mouth, and its muscles and bone shattered as it shot out like a meteor. The beast's hundreds of years of cultivation were wiped out by a single kick. Nice kick, Lai Ran cheered on the sideline. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration as he watched the tiger grow smaller and smaller. If national football is at this level, I wonder what it would feel like to play in the World Cup. I'm assuming he is comparing the skill now to how strong the skill would be when he becomes stronger. The giant's body disappeared, slowly disappearing into the void. Lai Ran nodded in satisfaction. This Kai manifestation skill is too useful. Moreover, his intuition told him that the power of the dragon elephant Zeshan was far more than that. Whether it was the shirtless ascetic, the divine dragon, or the giant elephant, there were many wonderful uses. However, Lai Ran's current cultivation wasn't sufficient to fully utilize this skill. Xiao Qingzhi sat on the ground, her eyes dull. What happened just now? A giant suddenly appeared and kicked the golden core stage Scarlet Flame Tiger flying. My God, she pinched her cheek, making sure this wasn't a dream. Hurry up, or we won't be able to reach the secret realm before it opens. Lai Ran walked over and said, that was the manifestation of your Kai. Xiao Qingzhi asked. You can take it like that. Lai Ran nodded. Xiao Qingzhi's voice shook. This was the first time she had heard that a golden core cultivator was able to manifest their Kai. Could Lai Ran really be the reincarnation of an immortal emperor? If not, this matter is really hard to explain. Laughable. I thought I could compare to him even if my cultivation is still here. The difference between me and him is like a cloud and mud. Xiao Qingzhi looked at Lai Ran with admiration. The two continued their journey. Due to the giant's kick, the tornado broke the trees in front of him, forming a plain road that was several kilometers long. Walking on the road was easier. Inside the depths of the forest, at the side, there was a stone door on the rock wall. There was deep divine light flickering at the gap between the doors. A group of men and women stood in front of the door. They all looked young. Everyone's backgrounds were unimaginably huge. Amongst them, The worst one was the direct disciple of a first-rate sect. At this moment, they looked at a white-robed man. Who was their leader? This person was a direct disciple of the Supreme Tao Palace. Song King Song, senior brother Song, with you in the secret realm this time around. The trip will be akin to taking a walk in a field we can just drink tea in. Wait, the others said flattery words. Song King Song shook his head and smiled. Don't say that. Fate is unpredictable. We can only depend on our abilities. Although his smile was warm, his eyes were filled with contempt. Only when his sight moved to a girl dressed in green with a long sword did seriousness appear on his face. Why is the Myriad Sword Pavilion here? Chapter 41. Pick out 2 lucky spectators. The green-clothed girl leaned against the tree trunk, a long sword in her arms. Her hair was tied into a high ponytail, and a strand of her hair was scattered beside her ears. At this moment, her eyes were lowered, and she had no intention of communicating with anyone. Song King Song looked at her and said with a smile, I didn't expect Fairy You to come too. Is Myriad Sword Pavilion also interested in this secret realm? What your Supreme Tao Palace can come, but my Myriad Sword Pavilion cannot. The young woman in green did not raise her head, and her tone was full of hostility. A trace of displeasure flashed through Song King Song's eyes, but he still smiled and said, Fairy You has misunderstood. The secret realm is full of dangers, so I feel much more at ease with you here. The green-clothed girl did not speak again. Song King Song no longer had the intention to do small talks anymore. He turned his head and said, This time, the secret realm can hold up to 10 people, and the exact 10 people present are present here. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. This was for the best. There was no need to fight for the spot, so they could enter the secret realm in the best possible state. The secret realm was filled with danger. Other than fortuitous encounters, they have to watch out for hidden dangers. One more trump card would be an additional guarantee for them. The most important thing is that all of us here are fellow righteous path disciples. There isn't a single devil sect here. This is indeed a great blessing. Song King Song said, That's right. Everyone is from the same path. At the very least, there's no need to worry about someone stabbing you in the back. We can follow Senior Brother Song's leadership at ease. Senior Brother Song will definitely protect everyone. The others all agreed with him. Song King Song nodded in satisfaction. If that's the case, then let's wait for the secret realm to open. Before he finished speaking, the ground suddenly violently trembled. A gust of wind whistled as the trees were uprooted. Everyone's body became a little unstable. What boundless spiritual power! The green-clothed girl suddenly raised her head. A black shadow appeared, followed by a strong wind. Be careful! Everyone hurriedly dodged, and the black shadow landed on the ground with a bang, stirring up a large amount of dust. What? When the dust dispersed, the black shadow revealed its appearance. It was a scarlet flame tiger. However, at this moment, its body was shrunken, its bones shattered, and it was on the verge of death. This is a golden core stage demon beast. Who has such great strength? Someone said with a trembling voice. Song King Song frowned. Could it be that the secret realm had already opened and alarmed the Beast King in the depths of the forest? His first guess was that the Beast King did it. If it was a cultivator, then the person would be too terrifying. Just as everyone was discussing amongst themselves, the green-clothed girl suddenly said, Someone is here. Huh. They followed the direction of the scarlet flame tiger and saw 2 people slowly walking over. The man was tall and handsome. The other person was wrapped in a white robe. Her hood was lowered, and they couldn't clearly see her appearance. They could only tell from the figure afar that she was a woman. My God! Did he kick this far? Lai Ran walked over and squatted down. He stretched out his hand to grab the scarlet flame tiger. Its eyes were filled with fear as it struggled to escape. However, its entire body's bones were shattered. Unable to exert any strength at all, it laid on the ground and whimpered as if it was begging for mercy. It did not seem to have the appearance of a golden core demon. However, its injuries were too severe, and its aura became weaker and weaker. In the end, the light disappeared from its eyes. Lai Ran shook his head. If I had known this earlier, why would I even bother? Seeing the scene, everyone was shocked. It was very clear that this demonic tiger had died by his hands. However, this youth was not that old. How could it be? He kicked it to death. They felt a little furry inside. Lai Ran stood up. Oh my! How lively is this? Are you all entering the secret realm? Everyone's hearts jumped. Hearing this, did he come to enter the secret realm? But they didn't have an empty spot left. At this moment, Song Kingsong cupped his hands and said, I am Supreme Tao Palace's direct disciple. Song Kingsong, may I ask for your distinguished name? Yuo Temple. Lai Ran said casually. Are you Lai Ran? The crowd immediately became heated as everyone took a step back. Even the green-clothed girl by the side widened her eyes as she stared at Lai Ran. It was actually him. This young man in front of them was the devil sex Shangzai, who had exceptional talent. A 17-year-old with a golden core cultivation. A unique existence in the vast land. As soon as he said that no one from a devil's sect had come, the most ruthless one had appeared. Trouble. Song Kingsong's throat tightened. He took a step back, obviously unwilling to start a fight here. Lai Ran didn't care. Is there enough people? No. Xiao King stood behind him and said in a low voice. This time, the secret realm can only accommodate 10 people. But there are already 12 people here. She had never expected that this secret realm would attract so many people. And all of them were sect geniuses. Supreme Tao Palace Song Kingsong, Myriad Sword Pavilion Yu Giantly, Heavenly Taoist Master Murong Chuan, especially Song Kingsong. They used to be fellow disciples of the same sect. If her current status was exposed, she would get in big trouble. She wrapped her robe tighter and lowered her head even more. That's easy. Lai Ran smiled and said, pick out 2 lucky spectators at random and let them return to the sect. Chapter 42. This is the so-called righteous path. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This is going to be a tough decision. Lai Ran said indifferently, will you choose or should I choose for you? Yu Giantly slightly frowned upon hearing this. This person is too overbearing. Everyone looked at each other. As expected of a demon from the devil sect, it was clear that he would not reason with them. Then what should they do now? Should they make a move? With the secret realms opening, who was willing to use all their trump cards to fight this devil sect Shangzai? And even if they joined forces, would they be able to beat him? That was someone who could kill even a scarlet flame tiger with a kick. The best option was to choose a sacrificial victim so that they could protect everyone's interests. If they really waited for Lai Ran to pick randomly, everyone would be at risk. The atmosphere quieted down. Everyone's eyes probed each other. And in the end, they all locked onto one person. Cao Yu. Yang Yu sect. A second-rate sect's direct disciple. He was the weakest one here. What are you all looking at me for? Cao Yu was flustered. You want me to leave him the first one who arrived here? I also told you everything I know. Right. Everyone seemed as if they hadn't heard his words. Cao Yu looked helplessly at Song Kingsong. Senior brother Song, you have to decide for me. Didn't you just say that we're all righteous path's disciples and that we need to advance and retreat together? Cough cough. Song Kingsong was a bit embarrassed. He cleared his throat and said, we are all righteous path's disciples. It's just that your cultivation is shallow, and entering the secret realm might be dangerous. It's better for you to go back and cultivate properly first. There will still be many opportunities in the future. He sounded like he was really concerned about the other party's well-being. Everyone was convinced by his words. That's right, Cao Yu. Your cultivation base is indeed very shallow. Go back and train properly. Senior brother Song is doing this for your own good. There's no need to risk your life for the secret realm. Cao Yu looked at their faces and knew that he had been abandoned. He gritted his teeth and said, good. Very good. I will remember. Everyone's face here. The mountains and rivers shall meet. We will definitely meet again. TLN idiom to remind powerful people to not go overboard and think of possible payback in the future. He shouted out his threat and turned around, disappearing into the forest. Ha pa pa pa. Lai Ran raised his hand and clapped. Brilliant. Too brilliant. It seems that I really have no potential to be on the righteous path. There's nothing I can do about it. You're all hypocrites. Everyone's face became red and they turned their heads away in shame. Song Kingsong was rather calm. Destiny is perpetual, and only the virtuous resides. It can only be said that Cao Yu's fortuitous encounter has yet to arrive. TLN in this context, I think Song Kingsong is trying to say that Cao Yu hasn't accumulated enough virtue strength, so his opinion is indispensable. Lai Ran shook his head. This person's skin was really thick. Alright, there shouldn't be any problem now. Before he could finish his sentence, Lai Ran interrupted. Wait a minute. I'm taking 2 spots. There's still 1 spot left. Song Kingsong frowned. If I'm not mistaken, the person you brought should be immortal. Right. A mere mortal is worthy of entering the immortal emperor's secret realm. Xiao Qing immediately became nervous. What he said was correct. They were all cultivators. And she was the only mortal. If Lai Ran really left her. Are you telling me what to do? Lai Ran laughed coldly. If I say she's worthy, then she's worthy. Do you have an opinion? Should I choose those myself? Or would you all rather choose? Song Kingsong became extremely furious. This Lai Ran was too unbridled. But since he didn't make a move at first, there was no need to make a move now. Modong Chuan, you can withdraw, he said. Senior brother Song Modong Chuan exclaimed. If you withdraw yourself, you'll still be able to retreat completely. Don't force me to personally send you off. Song Kingsong's voice was. This was a straight-up threat. Yu Jianli, who had been watching coldly from a distance, had a trace of disdain in her eyes. Supreme Dao Palace, so they are all like this. Murong Chuan's face turned pale as he left dejectedly. His body disappeared into the dense forest. I really didn't expect senior brother Song to be so shameless. Xiao Qing secretly shook her head, looking at the hero she once thought of as, and then at the devil standing in front of her. Her thin line separating righteousness and evil became increasingly blurred. Thank you, she said softly. No need. I'm just fulfilling my promise, Lai Ran said casually. Xiao Qing thought of something and said with a red face, I hope that you can continue to fulfill that other promise. Another promise. She was talking about engagement. However, Lai Ran did not understand that. After leaving the 2 unlucky ones, there were still 10 people left. All of them could enter the secret realm. Those who got to stay became relieved. However, the atmosphere was no longer as harmonious as before. Lai Ran's presence had destroyed their alliance. Now, everyone was suspicious and worried that they would be backstabbed by others. After the time for an incense stick to burn, the stone door lit up with clear divine light. Following a wave of rumbling sounds, the entire mountain began to tremble, and countless small pieces of gravel fell on the ground. The stone door slowly opened, and divine light shone out. As the crack grew larger and larger, the white light became dazzling until it was impossible to look at. Everyone watched with fervent expressions. The secret realm had finally opened. This was their fate, their fortuitous opportunity. Even Xiao Qing trembled with excitement. Whether she could return to the immortal path was up to her. Lai Ran only had one thought. The mission was finally about to be completed. Chapter 43 Mission Completion. Trial Opening. Normally, you would not require a key to enter the secret realm. As long as the entrance was open, anyone could enter it. Once the maximum number of people was reached, the entrance would automatically close. This was the so-called destiny. As a result, many larger secret realms would undergo a fierce battle before the entrance opening. The Ying family would set up various formations to prevent people from taking advantage in the dark. Not many people knew about the secret realm this time, so the process was quite harmonious. Although 2 people were forced to leave, there was no bloodshed. Everyone looked at the dazzling light. They were elated by the opening of the secret realm, but dared not take the first step. All of their eyes were focused on Lai Ran, since he didn't move, and the others didn't dare to either. The deterrence was evident. Lai Ran said, "Follow me." MHM. Xiao Qing nodded. Along with him, she stepped into the white light. Song Kingsong looked at her back and frowned. Her back, why does it feel so familiar? However, He didn't have time to think about it. He followed closely and entered the secret realm. The others hurried in as well. Only Yu Jianli didn't fight for an early entry. And she unhurriedly entered last. As soon as she had entered, the stone door closed. Everyone was wrapped in white light as they passed through the dark tunnel. When they opened their eyes again, everything suddenly brightened. They were in an ancient forest. The ancient trees were so broad that 4 or 5 people could encircle to hug the trees. Some of its roots were exposed on the ground, and the huge canopy towered up the sky. Precious spirit materials could be seen everywhere, and the air was filled with abundant spiritual energy. What a miniature secret realm. The spiritual energy here is very dense. 1 year of cultivation is comparable to 3 years of cultivation in the outside world. Unfortunately, the secret realm has a time limit. Otherwise, I'd be willing to enter seclusion here. My God, is that 100-year-old scarlet fruit? There's also purple ivy, and the nether soul grass teethize is the ancient emperor's back garden. Everyone was dazzled. Spirit materials that were extremely precious in the outside world were everywhere. Even the sect geniuses find it hard to calm down. As soon as they arrived inside the secret realm, they already found such peerless treasures. If they were to advance further, wouldn't there be a bigger surprise lying in wait for them? Perhaps the ancient emperor's inheritance. Song Kingson's breathing became ragged. At this moment, ripples appeared in the air. One by one, large words materialized from thin air and they were automatically arranged into words. Seek the immortality and compete against the heavens. A path filled with bones and overflowing karma. First trial. Hunting. The text was lengthy. Perhaps it signified that this secret realm was indeed the inheritance of a major powerhouse. This place was the first level of the secret realm, and everyone had to complete the trial to enter the next level. The first trial required them to hunt demon beasts. The top 8 people who collected the most demon bones could obtain the qualifications to enter the next level, and the remaining 2 would be sent out of the secret realm. This trial is really simple and crude. Lai Ran smiled. But I like it. After the others had finished reading the mission, they quickly flew into the depths of the forest. The howling of the demon beasts was heard. Of the chosen ones here, all were extremely powerful. Now, they were faster than anyone else. Lai Ran was in no hurry. He summoned the system in his mind, preparing to receive the reward first. Obtained Super Treasure Chest X1. Woohoo, it's actually a super treasure chest. Lai Ran immediately opened the treasure chest. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Golden Lightning Curse. The Golden Lightning Curse was a divine ability that manipulates the divine thunder from the 9 heavens to cause a devastating blow to the enemy. The higher one's cultivation base is, the stronger the divine lightning would be. In the hands of an expert, its might was not even inferior to a heavenly tribulation. Destroying a city was as simple as chatting and laughing. The needle need not poke. Lai Ran expressed his satisfaction. TLN, a Chinese meme that translates into really good. Apart from the dragon elephant session, he had another trump card. Let's go, we're going on a rampage. After closing the system, he prepared to head to the dense forest to hunt. Only then did he notice that Xiao Qing's face was pale. I forgot that you were a mortal. Lai Ran scratched his head. You tried your best to enter the secret realm, but you couldn't even finish the first round of the trial. What's going on here? Xiao Qing bit her lip. She was mentally prepared for all of this. Senior, being able to bring me here is already a matter of utmost benevolence and righteousness. Our agreement is fulfilled. Xiao Qing bowed and continued. Opportunities are fleeting. Senior, don't waste time on me anymore. It's better for Senior to quickly hunt demon beasts. I hope Senior can receive the ultimate inheritance. Oh, okay. Lai Ran nodded and left without hesitation. Xiao Qing was stunned for a moment. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. This fellow, he is quite straightforward. The spirit fruit, I must obtain it. This is my only chance. Of course. The prerequisite was to survive. Lai Ran entered the forest. His intuition told him that Xiao Qing had a big secret. However, if there were no secrets on his body, how could he have the nerve to come out? That was why he was not interested. The two of them had been in contact with each other for more than 10 days. He felt that her personality was not bad. Zhao Qingzhi was very good towards him. Lai Ran was different from those arrogant immortal elders. Even if the other party was an emperor, he wouldn't care about them. If he took a liking on anyone, even mortals would be considered his brothers. Therefore, when he left, he quietly placed a talisman on Zhao Qingzhi's body. Stinky little sister. Don't tell anyone that this brother didn't cover for you. Chapter 44 Zhao Qingzhi's Last Chance. Chapter 44 Zhao Qingzhi's Last Chance. Lai Ran entered the depths of the forest. As he moved along, the surroundings were filled with verdant light. Suddenly, he felt his heart skip a beat. It was as if something was staring at him from the dark. However, he didn't find anything after careful investigation. It's just too quiet. The trees covered the sky, many times higher than the other regions. There wasn't a single bug or songbird chirping, nor could the sounds of battle be heard. The silence was akin to death. He could almost hear his heartbeat. The sun above was scorching, but there was not a trace of warmth on his body. He continued to walk forward. Other than the trees, there were no other creatures around him. Weird. Where did all the demon beasts go? Lai Ran muttered. An ancient tree suddenly split its bark open right behind him, as if it was mocking him. Lai Ran's body suddenly stopped, as if he was in a daze. The ancient tree's smile grew even bigger as it silently stretched out its body. Its branches, which were as thick as a person's arms, ruthlessly whipped towards him. There was a crater on the ground, but no figure was present. I've caught you. Lai Ran's smile was vicious as he hovered in the air. Yunling's spear appeared in his hand. He threw it out like a javelin, and the silver spear pierced the tree demon's mouth at a lightning pace. There was a loud explosion in the air. The giant tree demon exploded from the middle, and with an ear-piercing wail, it fell to the ground. With a bang, the silver spear flew back into his hand and Lai Ran landed lightly. You want to pretend like a normal tree? Your head must be crooked. As the smoke and dust dissipated, the trees withered, and only a branch that emitted a sparkling green light was left on the ground. This was the spirit marrow of the tree demon, the beast's demon bone. Lai Ran tossed it inside his storage ring. No wonder no demon beasts can be seen here. So this tree itself is a demon. But then again, there are so many trees here. But there's only one demon here. As soon as he thought of this, the sky suddenly darkened. Lai Ran's pupils constricted as he left the spot. The surrounding ancient trees split open one after another, and the group of demons howled. Boom boom boom. The tree trunks that covered the sky frantically smashed its branches down. The surface of the earth cracked, and stones collapsed. Lai Ran transformed into a shadow, moving through the barrage of attacks. This group of tree demons were not weak. The weakest among them possessed a foundation establishment cultivation. Their roots dug deep into the ground, continuously providing vitality for them, coupled with the extremely large number of roots. It was indeed quite a trouble. Even if a golden core cultivator were to face this group of demons, the cultivator would be killed by them. Opportunities are always accompanied by danger. Lai Ran's body was suspended in the air, and his hands formed seals as he fiercely pressed down. A muffled sound rang out in the air. The branches of the demonic trees slightly arched down, as if they were facing great resistance. Yuo Temple secret technique, hidden spirit suppression seal. At the same time, numerous black blades formed behind Lai Ran. In a blink of an eye, the black blades numbered to hundreds. The black blade floated in the air, making a buzzing sound. Following his furious shout, the blades rained down like a rainstorm. Boom 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 boom. The hurricane soared and sawdust flew everywhere. The tree demons howled as they collapsed, causing an earth-shaking explosion. When the last tree demon was destroyed, the forest finally became quiet. Amidst the dust, the ground was covered in a green light, filled with the tree demon's demon bones. This is definitely enough. If I still can't advance, you'll just sit down and rest. Lai Ran gathered the demon bones and slowly walked away. On the other side, Zhao Qingzhi was carefully shuttling through the forest. She hid like a rabbit at the notice of the slightest movement. In this secret realm, she was simply too weak. She knew that she would definitely not be able to enter the second level. Therefore, before she was eliminated, she had to find immortal materials to produce spirit fruits. Spirit fruit, a fruit that was said to be capable of bringing the dead to life. As long as there was a breath left inside you, the fruit would be able to revive you. Besides saving one's life, it had a special effect that only a few people knew about. The effect was to reverse one's spiritual root. The spirit fruit would destroy the spiritual root, and then reverse the spiritual root grade. If cultivators ate it, their cultivations would be lost, and they might even lose their innate talent. It was even more poisonous than poison. However, Xiao Qingzhi happened to be a mortal who had lost her cultivation. As long as she obtained the spirit fruit, she would be able to reverse and regain her cultivation and talent. This was something she had accidentally stumbled on from an ancient book. However, the spirit fruit was an ancient immortal herb. Not to mention the mortal world. Not even the Supreme Tao Palace had it. It was rumored that the last time the spirit fruit had appeared was in a secret realm in the western region. That was why she placed her hope here. I must find it before the trial ends. Otherwise, I really won't have a chance. A trace of anxiety flashed across Xiao Qingzhi's face. Suddenly, the wind whistled behind her. Xiao Qingzhi's pupils suddenly constricted. Someone is here. Yo, isn't this the mortal who followed Lai Ran into the secret realm? Did Lai Ran leave you alone here? I'm afraid that the demon beasts will eat you. Song Kingson's voice rang out. Grimness flashed through Xiao Qingzhi's eyes. This was the person she was most unwilling to meet. Chapter 45. How do you want to die? Seeing that she didn't answer, Song Kingson said with displeasure, I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me? Xiao Qingzhi was afraid that he would recognize her voice. How could she dare speak? She lowered his head silently and turned around to leave. Lai Ran's arrogance is fine, but a mere mortal dares to ignore me. Song Kingson felt insulted by this gesture of hers. With a wave of his right hand, a gale appeared and directly blew Xiao Qingzhi away. Her body smashed into a tree and she spat a mouthful of blood. An intense pain came from within her body. Her internal organs seemed to be damaged, but she still gritted her teeth and remained silent. You got quite the backbone. Song Kingson walked over and stretched out his hand to pull off her hood. You wanted to act sneaky and refused to show yourself. Let me see your face. His words stopped abruptly. He stared blankly at that face, his eyes filled with disbelief. Xiao Qingzhi, no wonder her back looked familiar. It was her. Xiao Qingzhi staggered to her feet and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She calmly said, It's been a long time. Senior brother Song. Song Kingson snapped back to his senses and frowned. Why are you here? Who told you where this secret realm is located? Even if the Xiao family were to know of this information, they would not send a mortal here. Also, how could she be together with Lai Ran? Xiao Qingzhi said, This is my matter, so there's no need to report it to you. Right. She didn't mention anything. But Song Kingson was no fool. As his mind spun, he understood many things. Are you trying to regain your talent and return to the cultivation path through this secret realm? Xiao Qingzhi didn't reply. It could be considered acquiescence. Song Kingson grunted coldly. You don't know your place. You think you, a mere mortal body, is worthy of competing with me for a fortuitous opportunity. Then I wish senior brother Song good luck. Xiao Qingzhi didn't say anything more and turned around to leave. The spirit fruit was yet to be found, and she was so anxious that she didn't want to mess with him at all. Seeing her graceful back, Song Kingson's eyes grew colder and colder. Back then, as a genius cultivator, she had treated him coldly, and without any warmth. Now that her cultivation had been completely lost, she was still so arrogant. Did I let you go? With a wave of his right hand, Song Kingson's kai shattered the tree and the tree fell towards her. Xiao Qingzhi fled in a sorry state. She was nearly crushed into mush. Song Kingson, what do you mean by this? Her face turned ashen. Song Kingson sneered. Even though you've been expelled by the sect, you still have the imprint of our Supreme Tao Palace. Now you dared to collude with someone from a devil sect. What shame have you brought to the Supreme Tao Palace? Today, I will clear the shame of my sect. His eyes were sinister, radiating with killing intent. The hairs on Xiao Qing's body stood on end as she forcefully said, "Kill me, are you not afraid of Lai Ran? Don't bring him up to me." Hearing this name, Song Kingson's expression became even more vicious. If he cares about your life, then why would he throw you here alone? Wait until I kill you and feed your corpse to the demon beasts, who would know that I committed the murder. Xiao Qing felt a chill run down her spine. Is this vicious man in front of her senior brother Song, the one who was akin to a hero in her memory? There's no grudge between us. Why are you doing this? She really could not understand. Song Kingson smiled sinisterly. If you want to blame someone, then blame Lai Ran, who made you so arrogant. Driven by Kai, the flying sword automatically unsheathed and whistled towards Xiao Qing. His eyes were ferocious, and all the resentment he felt towards Lai Ran was vented in this sword strike. Lai Ran. Xiao Qing closed her eyes in despair. The last thing that appeared in her mind was not anger or unwillingness, but the figure of that man. Goodbye. A muffled sound rang out. However, no pain followed as she had expected. Her body was shrouded by a dark light, and like a light shining on a translucent cocoon, the flying sword was completely blocked. Dark light cocoon, it's Lai Ran's talisman. Song Kingson's expression became anxious. The reason why he dared to attack Xiao Qing was that she was a mere mortal. That didn't mean he was willing to fight Lai Ran, especially inside this secret realm. Since this matter has come to this point, I must kill her as soon as possible. Song Kingson activated his Kai, and his flying sword shone brightly as it whistled towards the cocoon of light. The amount of Kai that was stored inside the talisman paper was limited, so it definitely couldn't stop him if he were to use his full strength. A streak of silver light shot out from the dense forest and slammed into the side of the flying sword, sending it flying. On the other hand, the silver spear was inserted into the ground, and its shaft slightly trembled. Who is it? Song Kingson turned around with a serious expression, seeing Lai Ran flying down. His pupils constricted. Lai Ran ignored him. Instead, he glared at Xiao Qing. So you came to the secret realm to regain your cultivation? Xiao Qing lowered her head with a red face. I'm sorry, Senior. Her heart was warm. It turned out that he had not left her alone but had been protecting her. This feeling of being cared for was great. Why did you create more trouble for me? Lai Ran shook his head. You're willing to sacrifice your life for the sake of cultivation. Does this path suit you? Xiao Qing stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. Lai Ran had complained enough and turned to look at Song Kingson. His smile faded, his voice chilly. You dared to touch the person I brought inside. Tell me, how do you want to die? Chapter 46. Both of us will suffer losses. How do you want to die? Lai Ran took a step forward and boundless Kai surged out, forming a raging flame on his body. The raging flame was akin to a bottomless abyss, scorching fiercely. The Yunling spear seemed to sense the current atmosphere, and it trembled as it let out a hum. The atmosphere immediately became solemn. Song Kingson felt a chill rising in his heart. How could Lai Ran not hold back? Too anxious like Lai Ran. He was also in the late Golden Core realm. However, this year, he was already almost 40 years old, while Lai Ran was only 18 years old. Between them lies a huge gap, like heaven and the earth. Song Kingson didn't want to become enemies with such genius. However, the more the matter was like this, the less he could show his weakness. Song Kingson said in a high voice, Lai Ran, you want to attack me? I urge you to reconsider. This is only the first trial, and the later trials will be filled with difficulty if we both were to suffer any injuries in this battle. What we just be doing others a favor. We are all here for the sake of inheritance. It is not a wise decision to fight here. He's right, Senior. Don't waste your time. Xiao Qing also advised. She didn't want Lai Ran to miss this rare opportunity because of her. Yes, you're correct. But I have a small question. Lai Ran smiled and narrowed his eyes. Why do you think that you and I will suffer loss? Song Kingson was stunned for a moment as his heart rang with alarm. Lai Ran's figure blurred and suddenly appeared above him. Fast he wanted to leave, but it was too late. His gaze was replaced by a large hand. Lai Ran grabbed his head and ruthlessly smashed it into the ground. Song Kingson was blasted into the ground. When the smoke and dust slowly dispersed, Lai Ran's figure stood tall with a huge crater. Beside him, Song Kingsung laid in the pit, his entire body flickering with protective light. After all, he had the strength of a golden core cultivator. And he used a protective skill at the last moment. Lai Ran, how dare you touch me? Song Kingsung couldn't speak. I would've been upset if you died with just that. Lai Ran raised his foot and pressed it down. The protective light flickered, blocking his kick. Before Song Kingsung could let out a sigh of relief, Lai Ran's Kai surged out like crazy, and it caused him to continuously descend. With a soft sound, cracks started to appear on the shield. Then, it shattered. Song Kingsung was instantly horrified. He quickly bit through the tip of his tongue and transformed into divine light, escaping for his life. Spirit Seal. Lai Ran's right hand formed a seal, causing the air to freeze. Song Kingsung was forced to the ground. I am the direct descendant of the Supreme Tao Palace. You cannot touch me, or the sect leader will not let you off. Song King's expression was fierce. His Kai circulated, trying to resist the pressure. Who are you trying to scare? Do you think my sect doesn't have a sect leader? Lai Ran snorted coldly. These days, who wouldn't have any background? Song Kingsung's heart skipped a beat when he thought of Lang Wuyan. She was a demoness who could wipe out a sect with a wave of her hand, and she was extremely protective of her disciples. From the disciple to the master, neither of them are easy to provoke. He wanted to cry, but no tears would come out. He couldn't beat them, and his background wasn't that comparable to them. If the heavens gave him another chance, he would stay as far as possible from Lai Ran. Didn't you say that both of us are going to be injured? That's it. Lai Ran's palm moved slightly. The Yunling spear soared into the sky and pointed at Song Kingsung from afar. Song Kingsung grabbed the talisman. He was prepared to flee at any moment. At this moment, a calm voice sounded. Let's stop here. A young girl dressed in green landed between them. She was holding a long sword, the myriad sword pavilion. You Jianli. Song Kingsung's expression was filled with joy as if he had found a backer. Fairy Yu. This devil wants to kill me. We are fellow righteous path cultivators. You must help me. Yu Jianli glanced at him, a trace of disgust flashing through her cold eyes. She turned around and said to Lai Ran, it's only the first trial. Even if you're trying your best, there's no need to be in a hurry. It's better to preserve your strength. It's almost time for the inheritance to appear. Lai Ran pinched his chin and sized her up. So you two are together? Yu Jianli shook her head. I'm not familiar with him. Then why did you stand up for him? Seeing us fight to the death? Wouldn't it be in your best interest to sit back and reap the benefits? Lai Ran said. You're right. I originally thought the same thing, Yu Jianli said unabashedly. But I've discovered that he can't even force you to use your trump card, not to mention injuring you. Song Kingsung's face turned red, and he wished he could find a hole in the ground to bury his face in. Yu Jianli looked at Lai Ran seriously. You're very strong, so strong that I don't have the confidence to face you alone. This is why I don't want him to die for now. No matter what, Song Kingsung was still in the Golden Core realm, so he was still able to resist to a certain extent. Although she also looked down on Song Kingsung, with him around, she could at least maintain the balance of the situation and not clash with Lai Ran so soon. For now. Lai Ran raised his eyebrows. This person has plans. That makes sense. I'll let him live a little longer. Lai Ran nodded. He could feel that Yu Jianli was very strong. Since the content of the next trial wasn't made clear yet, he didn't want to use too many of his trump cards. It wasn't a good choice to fight against the two at this stage. Yu Jianli nodded and said, a wise decision. Song Kingsung heaved a sigh of relief. Although the process was humiliating, he was still alive. Just as he was about to leave, Lai Ran's voice rang out again. I said I wouldn't kill you, but did I said that I am letting you go? Song Kingsung was speechless. Chapter 47. Toolman. Song Kingsung. Song Kingsung's legs were about to go limp. What is this guy going to do? Lai Ran said. You beat up my sworn brother and wanted to leave unscathed. How could such a good deal exist in this world? Sworn brother. Song Kingsung glanced at Xiao Qingzhi and thought to himself, I would be a ghost if I were to believe that. This is clearly your lover. Then, what do you want? He asked in a trembling voice. Lai Ran thought for a moment and said, leave the demon bone you just collected. What? Song Kingsung was taken aback. No, you want me to get eliminated in the first trial? Yu Jianli frowned. This Lai Ran had planned it all. If Song Kingsung were to be eliminated now, that would not be good news for her. Who do you think I am talking to? If not you, don't tell me you really thought that I wouldn't dare to kill you with this little girl supporting you. Right. The air instantly became tense. A trace of anger flashed in Yu Jianli's eyes. Little girl. She was one of the top 3 geniuses on the genius rankings. No one ever had dared to call her that before. However, she still couldn't figure out the strength of this demon at present. In the end, rationality still had the upper hand. Give it to him. The trial isn't over yet. You should go hunt with all your strength. It shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the top 8. Yu Jianli said. But, it's better than dying here. Right. Song Kingsung fell silent. After a moment of hesitation, he tossed his storage ring and said, all of the demon bones are here. Lai Ren caught it and scanned it with his kai. He confirmed that there were no problems. Alright, let's go. Song Kingsung did not say anything else. He turned around and entered the dense forest. Yu Jianli didn't say a word as she flew away. TCH. Why are you pretending to be cold? Lai Ran muttered in dissatisfaction. All beautiful women seemed to be quite cold. Master was the same at first. But now, she had already transformed from an iceberg into a pool of spring water. Thank you for saving my life, Zhao King said gratefully. I can't repay this kindness. It's a small matter. There's no need to be so pretentious. Lai Ran waved his hand. The two of them had gotten along quite well during this period of time. Zhao King had already given him the map before entering the secret realm. This was a type of trust. Lai Ran did not want to watch her die here. You've dealt a critical blow against Song Kingsung this time. What if he plans to stab you in the back? Zhao King had a worried expression. Lai Ran shook his head. Who told you that I intend to kill him? Zhao King was stunned. When she thought about it carefully, he seemed to have only used hand-to-hand combat, and not any divine abilities. I knew from the start that Yu Jianli was hiding nearby. She wanted to see my trump card, and I wanted to test her attitude. As for Song Kingsung, he's just a toolman. Lai Ran's expression was indifferent. A toolman? Zhao King was a little confused. Lai Ran said, to be exact, a deadweight. With Song Kingsung around, the 3 of them would be able to maintain a considerable gap. No matter whether it was he or Yu Jianli who wanted to attack, they had to consider whether they would be attacked by a third person. Lai Ran continued, this time, the secret realm is full of dangers. Yu Jianli and I have the same idea. In the subsequent trials, we will have to depend on their own strength. When the final inheritance surfaces, we'll meet again. But what if they join forces to deal with you? Zhao King asked. Join forces? Lai Ran smiled and shook his head. Only one person can get the inheritance. That person might be me. Or Yu Jianli. However, it's definitely not Song Kingsung. Yu Jianli wasn't a fool. When the final inheritance came, Song Kingsung would be the first to get eliminated. Zhao King tilted her head, not quite understanding of the situation. Lai Ran knocked her on the head and laughed. You're just a mortal. Why are you following me around? Zhao King rubbed her head. I hope you can obtain immortal destinies. Immortal destinies, or whatever it's called. I actually didn't really care much about it, but did you get what you wanted? Lai Ran asked. Zhao King had risked her life to enter the secret realm. She definitely had something she wanted. That's right. The spirit fruit. It's over. Too late now. Zhao King patted her head in annoyance. She only cared about Lai Ran and forgot about it. Spirit fruit. Lai Ran thought for a moment and said, although there are quite a few spirit herbs here, immortal herbs are still very rare. Perhaps the second trial has something you want. But I can't advance further. Zhao King lowered her head in disappointment. Who said that? Lai Ran tossed a storage ring at her. She caught the ring in a flustered manner. This is, Lai Ran said. These are the demon bones collected by Song Kingsung. According to the rules of the secret realm, as long as this ring is in your possession. It should be considered as your spoils of war. In any case, it's useless to have too many demon bones. Else, it'll just be wasted. With the number of bones Song King-sung had gathered, it was quite easy for her to advance to the next trial. Zhao Qingj lowered her head, her eyes growing misty. Lai ran. How can I repay you for treating me so well? Chapter 48. No one can collect herbs better than me. Ding! A sound of chime rang out in the secret realm. Everyone's eyes blurred as they reappeared in an empty area. Some of them were still maintaining their combat stance. Clearly, they were taken while fighting with the demon beasts. At this moment, ripples appeared in the sky, and imposing words appeared once more. The end of the first trial. 8 people advanced. 1 died. 1 eliminated. A single person died. Lai Ran's brows jumped. The ones who entered this secret realm were all sect geniuses. All of them had profound cultivation bases and countless trump cards. The demon beasts here weren't strong enough to reach the foundation establishment realm. Even if they weren't able to defeat them, they would definitely be able to safely escape, unless someone had attacked. Lai Ran glanced at Song King-sung, only to see blood on the hem of his clothes as if he had been injured. He instantly understood. The murderer must be Song King-sung. He was afraid that he would not have enough time to advance, so he chose to snatch the spoils of war from others. This guy is really ruthless. Yu Jianli also looked at Lai Ran from afar. Clearly, the two of them had thought of going together. Then, beams of white light shot out, enveloping everyone. The 8 people enveloped by the white light gradually dispersed and headed towards the second round of the trial. As for the remaining person, he was sent out of the secret realm with an annoyed expression. When everyone opened their eyes, they were already in a new world. In front of them was a lush little mountain. The mountain was filled with numerous immortal herbs and spiritual plants, and their grades were several times higher than before. Heavens! Such rich kai, it's simply better than a kai gathering formation. The ground is full of immortal herbs. Is the entire lawn made up of immortal herbs? This is too shocking, as expected of an ancient emperor's inheritance. The geniuses let out waves of exclamations, like children who had never seen the world. Compared to this place, the place just now was like a small magus. Even if they couldn't obtain the final inheritance and harvest the immortal herbs, their trip was already worth it. The air trembled once more. Second trial, herb picking. The contents of this trial were very simple. Everyone had to collect the herbs from the herb mountain in front of them. The time limit was 2 hours. Finally, according to each person's herb quality, 6 people will be selected for the next trial. Compared to the previous round, this trial looked much more peaceful. Everyone seemed to be focused on collecting medicine. Of course, the number of immortal herbs was limited, so conflict would definitely arise. The trial starts now. Following the order, everyone could not wait to enter the mountain. Lai Ran and the other 2 entered the mountain as well. Collecting herbs was a skill itself. First of all, the precious immortal herbs might not be the most eye-catching ones. The method to distinguish them from each other was a problem. Secondly, the picking method was also very important. If the method wasn't correct, it might even destroy the medicinal effects and leak out the immortal kai. Lai Ran knew nothing about this topic, but he wasn't worried at all. Although I cannot pick herbs, I'm good at robbing. I can go rob others later. After making up his mind, he leisurely strolled around Herb Mountain. As for Zhou Qingj, she followed beside him, carefully searching for traces of the spirit fruit. After the time of a burning incense stick, Lai Ran stretched out. You can take your time and wander around. I'll go collect vegetables. After saying that, he soared into the sky. Collect vegetables. Zhou Qingj was confused. Song King-sung was walking through the herb mountain. Amongst these cultivators, he was the oldest and the most experienced. Apart from cultivation, he was also involved in numerous study fields. As for foraging herbs, it was his specialty. I've read the pill scripture, the herbal scripture, and the picking technique. Nobody knows how to pick herbs better than me. He began to search for herbs with confidence. Soon, he found some time near a stone wall. 1,000-year white vine. This is an immortal herb. It can be used to refine into a soul-cleansing pill. The pill has the effect of concentrating and purifying one's soul. Good treasure. He carefully collected them with the most delicate techniques. After taking 2 steps, his eyes lit up again. Extreme yang grass. Another immortal herb. This herb has the appearance of ordinary immortal grass, but the tips are slightly red. Those who don't study the Tao of medicine won't be able to perceive this difference. Song Kingsung's smile grew brighter and brighter. Not only was he able to advance steadily in this round, but he was also able to obtain so many treasures. It was simply a treasure realm. Just as he was enjoying himself, a figure appeared behind him and patted him on the shoulder. Who is it? Song Kingsung was startled. He suddenly turned around. As soon as she saw the person who had arrived, he became nervous. Lai Ran, why did you come looking for me? Lai Ran scratched his head. I'm not good at collecting medicine. Song Kingsung's brows jumped, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. So you're here to rob you? Lai Ran added the latter part. Song Kingsung's face turned pale. You can't do this. You're violating the rules. I am collecting the herbs with my own strength. Crack. Lai Ran clenched his fist, his joints cracking, his expression slightly impatient. I can't collect herbs, but I can fight you. However, I'm not an unreasonable person, so I'll give you 2 choices. Which 2 choices? Song Kingsung gulped. First, you can take the initiative to give me the herbs. What about the other one? Second, I'll beat you up, and then you'll give me the herbs. Song Kingsung trembled as he reluctantly handed over his storage ring. You're too polite. Please accept this. Chapter 49. If you cannot beat them, join them. Take care. Song Kingsung let go of his storage ring as he watched Lai Ran leave. After Lai Ran's figure had completely vanished, his face instantly grew twisted, infuriated to the point of exploding. Why me FCK? Damn it. You're bullying honest people. Robbing me. Do you know who I am? I am the Supreme Tao Palace's direct disciple. Golden Core expert. Song Kingsung. When we leave the secret realm, I'll make you pay the price. After venting his anger, Song Kingsung finally calmed down. In truth, he was just saying that Lai Ran had to pay the price to vent his anger. Not only did he not have that strength, but he also did not have the status to back it up. The Supreme Tao Palace was a top-tier sect, but the Yueyuo Temple was not just any sect either. Song Kingsung was only a direct disciple, but Lai Ran was the Shengzai, the future sect master of the Yueyuo Temple. Moreover, he had a terrifying master. A sect couldn't afford to offend Lang Wuyan. That was why he could only swallow these words. Forget it. It's not the time to think about this. Fortunately, only an incense stick's worth of time has passed. I still have enough time. Song Kingsung calmed down and continued on his journey to pick more herbs. The herb mountain was extremely vast. There were countless spiritual plants and flowers. Ordinary people would be dazzled by the sight, let alone to look for immortal herbs. As a result, most of the people's strategies were to collect whatever they saw. They didn't have enough knowledge to assess the herbs' quality. As for Song Kingsung, he knew that immortal herbs' value was simply not something that ordinary spirit herbs could compare to. Therefore, his attention was focused on solely high-grade herbs. Divining flower good stuff. It's as valuable as the 1,000-year-old white vine. Evil mist grass. This thing is extremely rare and can be used to refine poison pills. FCK. Black blood lotus. Not long after, Song Kingsung once again obtained several immortal herbs with his extraordinary eyesight and gathering techniques. This was indeed his home ground. No one can collect medicine better than him. You think you can stop me from advancing like this? You're dreaming. Song Kingsung had a relaxed expression. Who? Suddenly, the wind behind him sounded. Song Kingsung's body stiffened. He slowly turned around and saw that Lai Ran was smiling at him. You're here again. To rob you. Lai Ran nodded. Song Kingsung felt like dying. But what could he do? With tears in his eyes, he could only hand over the immortal herbs once again and pray that Lai Ran would let him go. However, Lai Ran was addicted to this act. After the time for an incense stick to burn, another cup of tea had passed. I've collected the herbs. Lai Ran turned the trial into a penguin farm in the end. Sung King Sun was on the verge of collapse. Big brother, you can't just take one sheep and repeatedly shear it. Please rob someone else. 2 tears flowed down his face. Lai Ran felt a little embarrassed. He scratched his head and said, because you know how to collect herbs. What a sin. Song King Sun finally understood that Lai Ran would never let him go. If he continued to collect herbs, he would be giving them to others. So he simply gave up on picking the herbs and joined in the robbery. I cannot beat Lai Ran. But does this mean that I cannot beat anyone? Song King Sun was specifically looking for someone with lower cultivation than him. He didn't care what they had picked. He stuffed them all into his ring. He no longer cared about immortal herbs. He only hoped that the trial would come to an early completion and enter the next round of the trial to end this nightmare. Those who were robbed also wanted to rob others. More and more people joined the ranks of the robbers. At this moment, the entire herb mountain was filled with resentment. At last, the group started fighting. Lai Ran, the one who had caused all of this, was currently walking around the mountains leisurely with an immortal pair. Beside him, Xiao Qingj was searching for traces of the spirit fruit. Lai Ran glanced at her and said, you shouldn't be immortal. Right. Xiao Qingj immediately became nervous. Could it be that he had discovered her identity? Why? Why are you asking this? Lai Ran shrugged. Mortals wouldn't know about the secret realm, nor would they know about the spirit fruit. You know too much. Xiao Qingj fell silent. After a while, she said in a low voice, I'm sorry. There are some things I hid from you. She did not want to lie to Lai Ran. However, when she saw how free-spirited and arrogant he was, she did not dare to reveal her identity. Their difference was simply too great. It was so great that it caused her to feel despair. Needless to say, everyone has their secrets. If I reveal my secret, it'll probably scare you to death. He was not interested in prying into the privacy of others. So King shook her head, feeling bitter in her heart. But my secret has something to do with you. I'm standing right in front of you. But you can't recognize me. Her thoughts surged. After a while, she carefully said, can I ask you a question? Go on. But I might not answer all. Lai Ran said. Xiao Qing's face turned slightly red. That do you have anyone you like? Lai Ran was stunned. It was this type of question. He nodded with seriousness. Yes. Chapter 50 Xiao Qing's misunderstanding. Chapter 50 Xiao Qing's misunderstanding. You have someone you like. Xiao Qing's eyes were filled with disappointment. She had lost her slightest bit of courage. Perhaps she and I are brought together by fate. Lai Ran shrugged. Then what kind of person is she? Xiao Qingj asked. It's quite complicated. Lai Ran thought carefully. No one else dared to approach her. But he was the only one who knew that she was not what the world expected her to be. She's both gentle and cute. She's a treasure. Of course. He was referring to Lang Wuyan. However, he didn't dare to say too much. He was afraid that Xiao Qingj would guess the identity and it would bring unnecessary trouble for them. Xiao Qing's heart ached. She said, but I remember that Yueyuo Temple has a rule forbidding disciples from marrying. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the sect master? Of course not. His lover was the sect master. What the hell would he be afraid of? However, these words could not be spoken to Xiao Qingj. There's a huge gap between our status. If we were to show up together, well, face gossip. Lai Ran said after a moment of deliberation. But I don't care about these things. I'll try my best to become stronger and protect her. That's good then. Bless you both. Xiao Qingj whispered, looking at Lai Ran's bright eyes. She suddenly felt the urge to cry. Now, there was no use in revealing her identity. That's right. When did you meet each other? She couldn't help but ask. Lai Ran thought about it. Probably when I was 8 years old. Ha! Xiao Qingj seemed to have been struck by lightning. The spirit herbs in her hands were scattered all over the ground. 8 years old. She stared blankly at Lai Ran. Her eyes filled with disbelief. Lai Ran nodded. Yes. The first time I met her, I was still very young and didn't understand anything. Only recently did I understand my feelings. I came down this time to settle some of my family matters, so I can be with her in the future. Once the marriage was annulled, he would be able to peacefully fall in love with his master. Zhao Qingzhi's heart was about to leap from her chest. Met at the age of 8. She and Lai Ran were playmates when they were young. They probably met when they were 7 or 8 years old. No one dared to approach her. She had lost her cultivation base and fell from the clouds. Countless evil devils were coveting her, so no one dared to approach her. Our identities were very different. If he was with her, they would face gossip. These words were correct. Lai Ran's status was noble, and she was only a mortal. If the two of them were to get together, they would, indeed, be pointed at by the world. The most important thing was that he had to settle some of his family matters to get along with her. He was talking about the marriage between the two families. He was going to fulfill the engagement so that the two of them could be righteously together. Every single one of them was right. So it turns out that Lai Ran didn't forget me. He always liked me. Zhao Qingzhi's nose was sour. Her heart was both sweet and warm. Her lonely and oppressive heart had finally found a place to accommodate. Aggrieved, confused, excited, she couldn't help but pounce into Lai Ran's embrace and cry. Lai Ran. What I said was at that touching he couldn't help but scratch his head. What a strange girl. Zhao Qingzhi's eyes were filled with tears as she raised them. Lai Ran. It's me. I am actually Zhao Wu. Her words came to an abrupt stop. Lai Ran covered her mouth and raised his eyebrows. Don't say anything. Someone's coming. A wave of energy streaked across the sky and someone flew towards their direction, landing not far away from them. Lai Ran quickly caught on the azure figure. Eugenely, the corners of his mouth twitched. Looks like he'll be able to collect herbs again. A mountain valley. Eugenely lightly landed on the ground. She took out a square-shaped stone slab. The stone slab was dense and filled with symbols, making it resemble a compass. In the middle, there was a golden needle that was slightly vibrating. It's here. According to the myriad discs direction, there must be immortal materials here. Apart from experience and eyesight, one could also rely on other heavenly artifacts to search for treasures. The myriad disc in her hand was one of them. This magical artifact could capture the immortal Kai from the treasure, thus pinning down its location. This method of treasure hunting was extremely practical. Eugenely had already gathered quite a few immortal materials, even in top sects. This myriad disc was a rare treasure. If Song Kingsun relied on his own ability to harvest herbs, Yu Jian's method could also count as relying on her ability too. She carefully searched the mountain, and in the end, her gaze locked onto a crooked tree. This tree was withered and aged as if it was about to wither to death. It was in stark contrast to the surrounding lush green spirit herbs. Eugenely took a closer look and saw that there was not a single leaf, but a bright red fruit on the withered tree. The fruits were round and its fragrance was indistinct. It's a spirit fruit formed from immortal Kai. Eugenely's eyes lit up. This is great. Normally, its medicinal properties could be considered like poison to cultivators. But when one was seriously injured and on the verge of death, this fruit could provide them with a second life. Not to mention that there were other miraculous effects through the spirit fruit refinement. She cautiously reached out her hands and tried to take the fruit. Suddenly, a killing intent came from behind her. Who was it? Eugenely dodged the attack with a flip. Then her pupils shrank. A silver spear landed in front of her, and the tip of the spear vibrated slightly. Lai Ran stretched and walked into her view. Hey, you're in trouble. Chapter 51. Ashamed. Eugenely. Zhao Qingzhi was hiding in the forest. As she looked at the fruit on the withered tree, her heart began to race. It's a spirit fruit. Within the ancient realm, there was indeed a spirit fruit here. From the fruit's effects, Zhao Qingzhi had a chance to turn around her spirit root and re-embark on the cultivation path. Furthermore, only after she recovered her cultivation would she have the courage to be with Lai Ran. Looking at his tall and straight back, Zhao Qingzhi's eyes were filled with tenderness. Lai Ran. What do you mean? Eugenely frowned. Lai Ran said casually. You should know that I'm interested in this fruit. You can leave now. We've agreed that the trials ahead will all depend on our own merits. Could it be that you want to destroy the agreement? Eugenely's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. We indeed have to rely on our abilities, Lai Ran said frankly. Collecting medicine is your ability, but robbing is also my ability. What's the problem? Yu Jianli's face became frosty upon hearing his words. From the looks of it, he had no intentions of being reasonable. If she were to give in at this moment, she would only let the other party take more advantage of her. She said coldly, "Very well. Then let's see your ability." She decided to use this opportunity to test the strength of a devil sex Shangzai. Lai Ran said in a serious tone, "Then you must be careful. I see that you're thin and delicate. Don't cry when you get stabbed by my silver spear." Yu Jianli blushed at his remarks. She angrily spat. "Hey, vulgar, you really are from the devil sect. You're extremely shameless. Did you misunderstand something? Eat my sword." Yu Jianli unsheathed her long sword, and as grateful as a stream of autumn water, she slashed out her sword at Lai Ran with hatred. "That's it." Lai Ran sent the sword flying. The sword spun and flew back, landing in front of Yu Jianli. Yu Jianli closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her eyes turned cold, and all her emotions disappeared. She had stepped into the void. The knot holding her ponytail fell off, and her jet black hair danced in the wind. A storm is approaching. A hand seal was formed on her hand. She opened her mouth lightly and the air grew increasingly intense. The longsword trembled as it multiplied from 1 into 2 and 2 into 4. In the end, it transformed into sword shadows that covered the sky. This wasn't an illusion. These sword shadows were formed from Kai. Every single one of them emitted an incomparably sharp sword intent. Yu Jianli lowered her head and looked at Lai Ran, her eyes extremely cold. Evil demon annihilation with a wave of her hand. The long sword that was hanging in the air instantly launched towards Lai Ran. It was like torrential rain. Not bad. Lai Ran's eyes were filled with admiration. Bang 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 bang. Under the torrent of the sword rain, the trees were cut off. The mountain was penetrated, and even the ground was on the verge of collapsing. The destruction might of this attack was a sight to behold. "You're too big." Yu Jianli laughed coldly. Her storm sword was able to seal the entire space, so no one could dodge the attack. Unless they were able to escape from the attack range, they could only forcefully receive it. Yu Jianli knew that no one in the same realm would be able to receive this attack. Not even the Shangzai of the devil sect. Wang! Suddenly, a wisp of faint light amidst the rainstorm. The wisp of light was akin to a lighthouse that was standing firmly in the face of a tempestuous wave. Yu Jianli looked over. Lai Ran was wrapped in a cocoon of light and was safe and sound from the rain of swords. Suddenly, he raised the silver spear in his right hand and rotated his body. His entire body, which was arched like a bow, gathered strength and he forcefully threw the spear. Thunder! There was a cold light amidst the dark sky. The silver streak of light tore through the sky like a meteor and charged at the sword rain. Not good. Yu Jianli's pupils constricted as she hastily recalled all of her spirit swords and turned into a screen of light to block the spear's trajectory. The silver spear was unstoppable, and the screen of light was pierced through like a plank of rotten wood. Just as it was about to pierce through the space between her brows, the longsword howled towards the tip of the spear and forcefully split the screen of light open. Hiss! The silver spear brushed past her skin, leaving behind a faint bloody line. Yu Jianli's eyes were filled with fear. This spear intent. She was a pure sword practitioner who treads on the path of sword, regardless of whether they were a blade, spear, stick, or a stick user. They were all the same. Lai Ran also studied a similar Tao as her. Yet his spear intent was purer than hers. This caused her to be deeply shocked. Lai Ran flew over to her and lightly stepped on the clouds. "I already told you that my silver spear is formidable. Come again." Yu Jianli's phoenix eyes were filled with flames. Her black hair fluttered, and her sword intent surged. "Still coming?" Lai Ran furrowed his brows. "Is it better to decide who is better? It's a matter of life and death." Yu Jianli's entire body erupted with Kai, and her sword erupted with dazzling divine light. She couldn't care less about any inheritance or schemes. At this moment, she wanted to prove herself through her sword. This was the pride of a sword practitioner. However, Lai Ran had a strange expression on his face. "Why don't you just let it go?" What are you afraid? Yu Jianli sneered. That's not the case. It might not be very convenient. Lai Ran pointed his finger awkwardly. Yu Jianli looked in the direction of his finger. Her clothes had been pierced through. Her snow-white skin and the pink insides were exposed. She cried out in alarm and hastily covered her body. Her pretty face turned crimson in an instant. You, cover your eyes. Don't look. Okay. Lai Ran reached out his hands and covered his eyes. His 5 fingers opened, and his eyes blinked between them. Yu Jianli was filled with shame and anger. She stepped on her sword and tore through the air. I'll let you go for now. Roman 3 will kill you another day. Chapter 52 Spirit Fruit, Zhou Qing's Choice. Lai Ran rubbed his chin as he looked at Yu Jianli's fleeting figure. Really white, but the problem is that it's a little small and needs more development. It was indeed as he had expected. Yu Jianli was very strong. She was simply not on the same level as Song Qingsong. That torrential rain sword was definitely not her strongest trump card. But it was enough to cut an ordinary golden core realm cultivator into meat paste. That sword is quite famous as well, and its quality is extremely high. At the very least, it isn't inferior to the Yunling spear. It's probably just slightly inferior to the spear. Lai Ran lowered his head and looked around. There were broken walls and ruins around him. He couldn't help but shake his head. A woman's destructive power is scary. A good medicinal garden was reduced to this. Lai Ran felt that he had forgotten something. Where is Sun King? He had forgotten about this girl. She wouldn't have been killed by the sword. Right. Lai Ran patrolled around the shattered ground. Here Zhou Qing poked her head out from a hiding spot behind the withered tree. Lai Ran heaved a sigh of relief and landed in front of her. Although her face was covered in dust, she was not injured at all. Her clothes were unscathed. Your luck is good enough. How else can you avoid such torrential rain? Lai Ran said with surprise. Zhou Qing smiled and said, I noticed the moment you started fighting. So I hid behind this spirit fruit tree. No matter how crazed Yu Jianli was, she would subconsciously avoid hurting this immortal material. Smart. Lai Ran gave a thumbs up. Hee. I'm an expert in hiding. Zhou Qing proudly replied. To be able to survive alone for 5 days in the Grand Myriad mountain range, one had to rely on one's adaptability and sixth sense. You said just now that this is a spirit fruit tree? Lai Ran asked. Zhou Qing nodded. According to the immortal record, the spirit fruit is full of life, yet it grows on the withered tree. It can be deciphered into the meaning that one's life and death are intertwined to each other. As for the spirit fruit tree, in the 100 meters radius, single spirit herb can grow. It's probably because the spirit fruit tree has taken the vitality of the surrounding place. She wasn't someone who would rashly intrude into the secret realm and had made sufficient preparations. You know quite a lot. Then do you know how to pluck this thing off? Lai Ran asked. Spirit fruit is different from other immortal materials. It doesn't require any techniques. Even mortals could easily harvest it. It's just that it has a small requirement for the pickers. Zhou Qing replied. What requirements? Lai Ran said curiously. Zhou Qing became a little bashful as she stated in a shy tone. The spirit fruit is abundant in yang essence. It can only be picked from the place where one's yin essence is still present. Otherwise, most of its medicinal properties will be lost. It has such a monstrous request. Lai Ran sized up Zhou Qing. Can you do it? If not, I'll catch Yu Jianli and make her pick the fruit. That girl had a cold expression on her face. She obviously wasn't interested in men, and her vital yin was, for sure, intact. Of course, I can do it. Zhou Qing stomped her feet in embarrassment. I'm not that kind of woman. Alright, please begin your performance. Zhou Qing calmed down and carefully picked the fruit. The instant the fruit left the branch, the entire withered tree collapsed and instantly turned into ash. The mission was completed. As for where the dust would fly, it would all depend on a good fortune if the next living spirit fruit can emerge. Zhou Qing held the spirit fruit in her hand. She could feel the vigorous life within it. This was what she had risked her life to find. It was also the key to whether she could recover her talent and re-embark on the path of cultivation. She looked at the fruit and then Lai Ran. She reached out her hand and said, "Here you go." All Lai Ran was stunned. "Isn't this what you're looking for? Why are you giving it to me?" Zhao King shook her head. "This spirit fruit isn't mine. It's yours. If it weren't for you, I would've already turned to a corpse in the wilderness. I wouldn't have had the chance to enter the secret realm, and I wouldn't have been able to reach this level. Therefore, this spirit fruit should belong to you." Lai Ren scratched his head and said, "But you picked this fruit. Without me, you would have other methods to pick the fruit." Zhao Qingzhi replied, "It has nothing to do with me." Lai Ran smiled. "All right, then it's mine. Can't I give it to you?" After getting along with Zhao Qingzhi for the past few days, he witnessed her unyielding spirit despite being on the verge of death several times. Even this made him gasp in admiration at her persistence and strength. Even if it was from the fruit of his success, this fruit should still belong to her. Zhao Qingzhi was silent for a long time and said seriously, "I still can't take it. Why don't you risk your life for it?" He really couldn't understand. Zhao Qingzhi stuffed the spirit fruit into his hand. Her eyes filled with tenderness. "The inheritance is about to occur. A fierce battle is unavoidable. Even though you're very strong, this is an ancient emperor's inheritance. You cannot underestimate the severity of the upcoming trials. Song Kingsung is clever and cunning. You giantly had her secrets. What if something unexpected were to happen? You can save your life at the critical moment if you keep the spirit fruit." Lai Ran looked at the tenderness in her eyes, and his heart suddenly felt a bit awkward. "Then what will you do?" Zhao Qingzhi smiled and gently pressed against his chest. She listened to the vigorous heartbeat. "Only if you live will all the things I've done be meaningful. If you can successfully walk out of the secret realm, and this fruit has not been used yet, then come to Wying City to find me. I'll be waiting for you." Chapter 53 The Third Trial. A Palace in the Sky. In the end, Lai Ran was unable to convince Zhao Qingzhi. He helplessly accepted the spirit fruit. "But you have to give me an address." "Right, how else would I find you?" he asked. Zhao Qingzhi smiled and said, "When you reach Wying City, you will certainly find me. At that time, I will give you a big surprise." According to her understanding, Lai Ran would go to the Zhao family to fulfill the engagement. At that time, the two of them would naturally meet. "TCH, you're quite mysterious." 2 hours later, the trial was finally over. Everyone was taken away by an irresistible force and returned to the empty area in front of the herb mountain. Most of them were covered in dust. They were in an extremely sorry state, and some of them were already dead. Ever since Lai Ran had started the robbing chain, no one had gone to collect medicine seriously. Everyone had completely fallen out from each other. "You stole from me. I stole from you." All of them happily fought. However, there weren't many people who had truly harvested immortal materials. At this moment, the atmosphere was murderous, and everyone was vigilant as they fiercely swept their eyes around everyone. This round of trials made them realize that they had to fight with their lives on the line if they didn't want to get eliminated. There was no such thing as a fellow righteous path cultivator. Everyone was an enemy. Yu Jianli had changed into a new set of clothes and wore the same green outfit. She stood in a corner, not saying a word as she held her sword in her arms. She exuded an unapproachable aura. Only when her eyes inadvertently met Lai Ran's eyes would a trace of shame and anger flash in her eyes. But then, it was replaced by an ice-cold killing intent. At this moment, ripples arose in the space. The end of the second trial. 6 people advanced. 2 eliminated. Then, beams of white light shot out, enveloping everyone who had advanced. The ones who were eliminated were Zhao Qingzhi and a disciple of the Zhengyi sect. Their expressions were completely different. The face of Zhengyi's sect's disciple was pale, his expression gloomy, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Zhao Qingzhi, on the other hand, was in a daze, as if she had picked up something valuable. "I'm leaving. You must be careful." She obediently waved her hand. Lai Ran said helplessly, "You should be worried about yourself. I'll wait for you." "Understood." After bidding farewell to Zhao Qingzhi, Lai Ran formed a hand seal, and a streak of light struck the body of the Zhengyi sect disciple. "Who The Zhengyi sect disciple coughed up a mouthful of blood. He turned around and looked at Lai Ran with confusion. Big brother, what enmity did we have already eliminated? Sorry, Lai Ran said, but I have to take preventive measures. The disciple was sent out of the secret realm with a question mark on his face. The other 6 had successfully advanced to the next round. Those who were eliminated would be teleported to the entrance of the secret realm. Zhao Qingzhe was immortal and she was as fragile as a flower. Leaving with another cultivator was very dangerous for her. That was why Lai Ran used his technique to seal the opponent's cultivation. Although it wouldn't last long, it would provide enough time for Zhao Qingzhe to escape. He had even covered Zhao Qingzhe's body with runes, and all sorts of techniques were used on her to guarantee that she would be able to walk out the Grand Myriad mountain range safely. She really places her trust on me. She's not afraid that I won't give her the spirit fruit. Lai Ran smiled and shook his head. What a silly girl. The white light dissipated. Everyone was teleported to another place. In front of them were floating stairs towering upwards. At the end of the steps lies an incomparably luxurious palace. The palace stood in the clouds. Its cornice stood straight, and a golden tile that glazed as brightly, emitting an imposing solemnness. This was a true sky pavilion. Everyone was stunned by the scene before them. A palace in the sky. After all, the existence of this secret realm was more than 1,000 years old. What kind of good fortune and might was required to maintain this state? Yu Jianli's eyes narrowed slightly as he gradually became excited. This was the legacy of the ancient emperor. Furthermore, he was an immortal emperor whose strength was unparalleled and surpassed the entire world. Otherwise, there would be no such thing. Ripples rose in the air. The third trial, a palace in the sky. The trial was very simple. The remaining 6 people had to climb the cloud stairs in front of them. The first 3 people to reach the top would successfully advance and enter the final trial. So simple, everyone's hearts jumped. Those who had come this far were not fools. The previous 2 rounds were already in full swing. How could this round be so simple? There must be something hidden within the rules. Lai Ran came to a realization. The first trial tested one's strength, while the second round tested one's eyesight and experience. The goal of this trial was for 6 people to compete with each other. The one who was able to take the lead must not be the fastest, but the strongest. What about the final trial? Lai Ran looked at the magnificent palace on the clouds and guessed. 3 people left to fight. Will only one person remain at the end? The heavens and earth were merciless. The immortal path was ruthless. The path to immortality was always paved by corpses. Only by stepping through the river of blood and mountain of corpses and ascending to the peak of the 9 heavens could one become an undying emperor. Lai Ran and Yu Jianli looked at each other from a distance. The battle spirits in both of their eyes were burning. Chapter 54. Climb the cloud stairway. Step on the immortal path. The trial begins now. The words dispersed, and everyone regained their mobility. However, no one made a move. Who knew if there was a trap in front of them, or if there was a sneak attack from behind? Everyone was on guard against each other, and no one dared take the first step. A group of rats. Yu Jianli snorted coldly. She took the lead to ascend the steps. The crowd blushed in embarrassment. When they saw that someone had set the precedent, they followed suit. Lai Ran was the last one on the stairway. As soon as he stepped on the stairway, he slightly frowned. He felt pressure down on him. The higher he climbed, the stronger the pressure was, making it impossible for him to advance at full speed. I see. Lai Ran looked at the floating palace. There were over 1,000 steps. How terrifying would the pressure be at the very end? Then there's no need to worry. Lai Ran held his hands behind his back and walked one step at a time. It was as if he was on a hiking trip. Now, everything has become useless. He understood that only the strongest could reach the end. However, the others did not think so. One by one, they erupted with Kai and climbed upward under pressure. None of them wanted to fall behind. An ear-piercing explosion rang out accompanied by a cry. Song Qingsong, you're a righteous path cultivator. Yet you dared to launch a sneak attack. Song Qingsong sneered. You moved too slowly. It's better to go home and rest. Then, he sent the other party down the steps. This place had already been sealed, prohibiting all flying abilities. That person could only howl and fall down. Then, he was wrapped in white light and teleported out of the secret realm. When the crowd saw this, they immediately shivered. Song Kingsong, as the righteous path. How could you do such a thing? We only called you senior brother's Song because we respected you. We didn't expect you to act so lowly. You're truly embarrassing the Supreme Dao Palace. Aren't you afraid that will expose your actions? The geniuses all stood on the high ground as they all accused Song Kingsong. Song Kingsong snorted. Stop pretending I don't believe that you don't want to do the same too. If I don't want to be eliminated, you'll have to find a way to eliminate others. Besides, you won't die even if you were to fall down the stairs. You'll just be kicked out of the secret realm. Why are you being so pretentious? After speaking his part, he continued climbing up. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. What he said makes sense. A moment later, fighting techniques rolled. The flames were scorching everywhere. Surnamed Liu, I used to see you as my brother, but you dared to attack me. Who would attack me if you have the guts? Fight with me. FCK, which of you threw a banana peel on the ground? I'll wait for you outside. I'm not done with you. A fight broke out on the stairway. The stairs became abnormally noisy. Lai Ran shook his head disdainfully at this sight. This was the righteous path cultivators. He finally understood why Leng Wuyin would rather be a devil. Excuse me? Lai Ran's voice rang out. The geniuses who were kicking each other came to an abrupt stop. Everyone stopped and opened a path in unison. Lai Ran walked up slowly with his hands behind his back. Just a few steps later, a fight broke out behind him once again. As the people bombarded each other with their abilities, they knew very well that there were only 3 winners of the trial. They knew that the first 2 winners were undoubtedly Lai Ran and Yu Jianli. What they wanted to snatch was the final spot. Therefore, no one dared to touch Lai Ran. Lai Ran was quiet as he climbed up step by step. Before long, he met Song Kingsong, who was sweating profusely. They had already reached the second half of the stairway, and the pressure that was emanating was extremely great. Even Golden Core realm cultivators would have great difficulty taking every step. When Song Kingsong saw Lai Ran, he immediately shivered. It's over. Why is this devil behind me? You can't just beat me down. He swallowed his saliva and moved to the side to give way. He stretched out his hand and said, Please. Lai Ran walked past him without any intention of making a move. Song Kingsong heaved a sigh of relief as his heart fell to the ground. Although he didn't know why Lai Ran had let him go, his advancement was definitely secured. Lai Ran continued to climb the steps. He felt that the pressure on his body was getting heavier and heavier. He had to use his full strength to resist, especially after reaching the last 10 steps. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on him, and every fiber of his bone and muscle was screaming. Lai Ran took a step forward. There seemed to be a clanking sound in his ear, shaking him to the point that his soul became unstable. Another step. His muscles were bulging, his veins were bulging, and his joints were exploding. The more he walked forward, the more pressure he felt, and his figure became even more hunched. When he stepped onto the second last step, Lai Ran felt that he was seeing stars. His soul seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and he almost couldn't stand still. White smoke emitted from his body. This was a sign that his Kai had reached its limit. Yu Jianli was right beside him. She was similarly pressed to the ground, her face drenched in sweat. These steps had their own set of principle. The stronger the person's cultivation, the greater the pressure they would face. Yu Jianli gritted her teeth. I'm afraid I won't be able to climb this last step. Part 3 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.